Years before World War II, a 15-year-old boy, Stig, and his family came to Malmö from Stockholm, Sweden. Stig joined Malmö High School to complete his studies. Just at this time a teacher named Viola also came to that school. By this time Stig was past his teenage years, the age when boys talk about girls' things and are very naughty. So one day during class, Stig and his friends were talking about girls and killing flies. Viola watches this scene but says nothing during the class. Viola stops Stig at the end of class to ask what he did during class. When Stig admits to mischief, Viola punishes him by cleaning the blackboard and asks him for the letter that his friends gave him. While Stig was cleaning the blackboard, he felt attracted to Viola. Viola understands this but says nothing. Stig was waiting for his older brother Seg. Seg is a boxer but he will soon join the army. Stig works in a film theater every evening. While he is almost late for the film, the theater is worried. Stig's neighbor girl Lisbeth is secretly in love with Stig. He secretly watches over Stig. Lisbeth learns the language of Stockholm to impress Stig. One night while Stig is at the theater, his brother Stig arrives. Stig will go to the army the next day. Stig spends time with his brother. This makes Stig very happy. The next day at school, Stig talks to Viola, pretending to explain the reading. After reading, he goes very close to Viola while putting the book away. From then on, he always thought about Viola. He even stands under Viola's house. Slowly, Viola also understands Stig's thoughts. Stig's attraction to Viola is understood by the other children of the school. This continues for some time. Suddenly one day Stig got what he wanted. Viola and Stig begin an affair. They spend time together at school, hiding from others. Stig spends time at Viola's house, excluding his friends. Viola tells her not to come when her husband is home. One day Stig was sitting at Viola's house when Viola's husband Frank arrived. At first Stig tries to hide but is met by Frank. Frank thinks Stig may have come for tuition. Viola doesn't breathe a sigh of relief as Frank doesn't understand anything. Meanwhile, their relationship goes a long way in secret and they forget everything and focus only on their relationship. Viola starts telling Stig all the things on her mind that she doesn't usually tell anyone else. A few days later, Siggy's boxing match began. Stig went to see the match after finishing the work of the theater. Stig wins the match and the two brothers return home together. Every night, Stig is annoyed by his father's snoring. Annoyed, he comes to Viola's house late at night. Frank looks at Stig again but doesn't understand anything. Meanwhile, Stig and Viola's relationship deepens while Lisbeth learns the Stockholm language for Stig. A few days later, Stig goes to Viola's house on his birthday. Frank meets Stig again that day. Now the two of them started talking. A friendship is formed between them through words. Stig and Viola grow closer through this new friendship. When Frank is not at home, Stig stays with Viola then, and Frank stays with her when Frank returns home. Stig realizes that Frank is a nice person but drinks too much. One day Frank sees Stig in their room and finds out about his affair with Viola. But Frank says Stig doesn't have to explain. Frank reveals that he knew about his wife's affair all along. But he can't do anything because of a mistake many years ago. Frank also said that a few days after his marriage, he started having an affair with one of his daughters and from that time his marriage ended. Stig uses a type of code when talking to his brother that only Stig and Stig can understand. Meanwhile, Frank begins to change through Stig's friends. Viola also notices Frank's change. A few days later, Lisbeth's family and Stig's family were having a family event. Just then, Lisbeth takes Stig's chance and takes him to her room. He asks Stig to close his eyes and say after some time see what a girl looks like. Lisbeth also says that she wants to start a new relationship with Stig. He shows Stig a condom under the pillow and a rags under the bed. Lisbeth says that since she is a virgin, if she bleeds, she can wipe it with rags. Stig is not interested. He wants to tell Karen for this but Lisbeth doesn't listen and asks him to go out. Stig tries to understand why Viola doesn't leave Frank since she doesn't have a good time with him. To this, Viola says that although she has no relationship with Frank, if she leaves, Frank will end up completely addicted to alcohol. Meanwhile, Frank starts drinking again, saying that there is a strike in America for not making nylon clothes. Since he himself makes nylon clothes, his business may be closed. Stig is very distressed to see Frank in this state. He tells Frank to find a new job. At that time, 15 years, Stig seems much more intelligent. He is on the one hand holding a broken Frank while on the other Viola also calls him to him. Then Stig does not know who he will choose. In the end, he makes the right decision. He leaves Viola for Frank and he moves out of Viola's house. Viola doesn't like this. Stig slowly moves away from Viola while Viola tries her best to get closer to him. Annoyed, he storms out of class and walks into the girls' restroom to talk to Lisbeth. Stig hides in a locker. He begs Lisbeth to come to him. Lisbeth forgets everything and returns to him. Meanwhile, they both hide in a locker. They move the locker thinking it has Jim's stuff. No one realizes they're hiding here. It takes about an hour for them to get out. But Lisbeth doesn't know that Stig only came to her to get away from Viola. A few days later, Stig was listening to the news on the radio while talking to his mother. At this time, the news of submarine attack was broadcast. Upon hearing this news, Stig retrieves his brother's letter and finds that the submarine that Stig was on has been attacked. He hides the news of his brother's death from his mother. A telegraph arrived the day after this event, with the official notification of Stig's death. Stig tries to hide this telegraph as well but eventually learns of his mother Stig's death. Viola was very restless because Stig had been away from Viola for days. Unable to stay, she goes to the theater one night and meets Stig. Lisbeth was also present in the theater that day. Lisbeth looked for Stig, but couldn't find him. At one point he sees Stig kissing Viola. Stig then approaches Lisbeth and apologizes but Lisbeth refuses to accept it. Stig goes to Viola's house to end their relationship. But he finds Viola drunk with wine. From the day Lisbeth finds out about their affair, she starts drinking heavily. Stig cannot handle Viola and is forced to have sex with her again. One day Viola calls Stig to school and tells him that he will fail because he didn't study well. But Stig knows that Viola is doing it to keep him close. Stig realizes this and attacks Viola. Viola still wants to have him. Then he wants to show his true form in front of everyone. Meanwhile, the principal tells Stig that he has to repeat another year because he failed. After knowing this, he starts looking for Viola's number card. Stig finds that Viola has torn out her number pages. Stig wastes no time going over to Frank to help him. Says that he should talk to Viola to avoid ruining his future. But Frank says there's nothing he can do. A few days later, the principal calls Stig to talk about his brother Seg's death. Time comes a plane. Seeing which all children get scared. This plane threw gasoline on the children. There a child started a fire and several children were injured. Seg's death changes Stig completely. Projectionists understand this. The attack on the submarine in Siege was played out in theaters. After watching the reel a few times, the projectionist took Stig away. Sig and other soldiers are honored. Everyone's family is present in this event. After Sig's farewell ceremony, they were returning home by train. Stig was discussing many things with his mother. They were talking about Stig's studies. Meanwhile, Stig's mother doesn't know about his affair.
So she thinks that Stig's studies are bad due to working in the theater and she blames herself. He also thinks that Stig may not be able to study due to the condition of the house. He later tells Stig that there are other things besides that Stig is hiding. Stig then says that in a few years when he is older he will tell everything. Meanwhile, Stig sees his father crying for Sig outside. Stig handles his father. A few days later his school released his results. On this occasion he humiliated Viola in front of everyone and left without taking the mark sheet. This completely devastates Viola. Finally, Stig sneaks into school one day and takes all the books from Viola's desk and prepares to repeat a year face with head bandage.